6:30, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. Mitch, call the roll, please.
Elfon,
Here.
Nystrom, she's on her way. Melhouse, here. Steven,
Here.
Richard.
Here. Okay, on to number 2, recognition of visitors.
Yes, we have a Doors Award to hand out tonight. I believe Mr. Kelly is going to present and share about the nomination. But Rose, do you want to go ahead and stand right here and so we can honor you and the good work that you do and I'll hand you this. And then Scott, do you need me to share with you the? Got it? Okay. Okay.
I will.
Okay.
One of the nice things,
Come.
sometimes when we look at that, it's always nice to have a nomination from, it's always nice to have a nomination from outside of the school and the community. And so Jill Lutz was the one that nominated Rose for this, so I'll let her read her statement.
I would just like to read my nomination. Students cycled through many teachers during their 4 years at the middle school, and one constant for us has been Mrs. Kundle teaching middle school band. Her dedication to building the foundation of the band program in Boone is evident. When her daughter Juliana began a band in 5th grade, it was the first year that the 5th and 6th grade band had its own dedicated hour. Previously, students had been pulled during activity time for band. Giving a band its own hour has certainly helped retention throughout the middle school years and into the high school years. When the high school marching band takes the field for football games, it is noticeably larger. I think there are close to 100 students in the high school band now, and this year the high school has had enough kids to split into 2 concert bands for the first time in 15 years. This is partially due to the work that Mrs. Kundle has been putting in at the middle school. In addition, Mrs. Kundle has a lot of fun activities for the kids to participate in. In the fall, the middle school students got to join the high school marching band on the field during the final home football game. I also got to chaperone the middle school marching band to carol for a parade, and I rode along to Ames to watch the ISU concert, jazz, and marching bands perform at the ISU Band Extravaganza. Juliana has also participated in jazz band the past 2 years. Activities like these take place outside of the school hours and wouldn't happen without excellent communication between the director and the parents. Mrs. Kundle sends emails about 2 weeks in advance of the events and updates her Facebook page and the Remind app and helps us parents plan. We are never left guessing with her commitment to communication. Mrs. Kundle's service to the students in Boone is excellent, especially considering she does not live in Boone and has a husband and 3 children and their own activities in another school system. She is also an outstanding flute player in her own right and plays in different instrumental groups in the community, including with me and the Boone Municipal Band each summer. I get a little sad when I think about Juliana's time in middle school band coming to a close. But then I remember our daughter Emily is in 3rd grade. I'm sure Emily has heard all of the great things about middle school band from her sister, and we will get to experience it all again very soon. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Mr. Kelly, and thank you, school board, for supporting all of our students at the middle school. And we hope to see you at our drama concert on the 24th of February.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, on to consideration of the agenda. Julie, anything to add or change?
No changes necessary?
I'll move to approve the agenda as printed.
Have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, it's this time that we hear from delegations. Doesn't look like we have anybody.
I don't think so.
Down to routine business and the consent agenda.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda for pulling out 2 bills, one for Pritchard Brothers for $27.90 and one to Pat Teven for $20.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the consent agenda, pulling out those 2 bills. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we have a couple more motions on routine business then.
Move to approve the Pritchard's bill for $27.90.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any questions? Otherwise, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention from Pritchard. One more motion, please.
And then I'll move to approve the payment of the bill for Pat Teven for $20.
Been moved and seconded. Barring any questions, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
Motion carries.
Okay.
This time, we'd like to open a public hearing at 6:36, and the goal of this hearing is to review the 2022-23 calendar drafts. I'll turn it over to Julie and Jill.
Actually, yeah, Dr. James, do you want to just summarize the main differences between the two and share a little bit before we technically have the hearing so that we can make sure everyone has the information?
Yeah, do you want me to share from here, from there, from?
I'm trying to add both of them, so I guess you can go wherever you
You
want.
can be wherever you'd like to be.
I'm good here if you're okay. Right? Thank you. Okay, 2 drafts here. Draft.
This is one, this is,
Yeah, what I was gonna say, what we call draft 1 is on the right, so sorry for being out of order here, but it's really very similar to what our school year looks like this school year, just the dates adjusted for where they fall in the 2022-23 calendar year. So start and end date are very similar. One built-in snow day in April, the Monday after Good Friday, that is a PD day, is in there. Spring break is traditional conferences one early release on the first Wednesday of the month. So, and the same PD days as we have typically had the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years-ish for quite some time. So this, the calendar on the right is almost a mirror of what we have this current school year. The calendar on the left then is one that we made some adjustments to as a draft based on feedback from our Hvac committee and feedback we had heard from some teachers. And then we brought that one to our district lead learning team of teacher leaders and administrators last Wednesday to get some more feedback, and then sent that out for feedback to all staff in the last couple days, end of last week. So that calendar has a few changes. It has 2 less instructional days to meet that Hvac recommendation from parents of wanting to be out before Memorial Day and wanting to make up snow days, but with the intention of being able to make them up in a better place in the school calendar than just tacking them on to the end. Some districts forgive the snow days, some districts make them up, and our parents said they agreed with making them up, but they'd rather make them up at a meaningful time than tack on a couple at the end of the year. So they could sacrifice a few less days to build in some snow days so that we could have meaningful learning if need be. So that one has 3 built-in snow days instead of just the 1. And it does go down 2 instructional days, then to 177 instead of 179. It also adds a second early release each first and third Wednesday, rather than just the first. We did have that in the calendar last year, and we are just finding that that instructional time is so tight in our school day, and the school hours are very, very long. And so for our teachers to have additional time for collaboration and planning, that second Wednesday of a month added in there each week really could make a difference for teacher collaboration and planning purposes for better instruction. And then additionally, because to go down 2 instructional days, that gives 2 additional days in the teacher contract. And so we added 1 to the end of the school year as an additional work day. Last year, having 2 at the end of the school year that just kind of happened because of COVID and snow days was very positive. We had time from some professional learning to wrap up the school year and to kick off some things for the coming year, but we also had work time then for teachers to close up their classrooms and really leave feeling good for summer. And then we put the other day at the beginning of the calendar as kind of an idea from another conference school to do that as 8 hours of flex time. It seems each year there are more and more required trainings that the state has for teachers that are online trainings that they can take, but it takes anywhere from 3 to 4 hours to complete all of those. And we're asking them to cram that in the other time that they're doing prepping their classrooms and so on. And so giving them 8 hours of flexible time to be used at the beginning of August to work in their rooms, to log those trainings and those things was an idea that came from another district, a valuable use of that additional contract day. I think that is the highlights, other than it does move a school day. In the past, our kids have had off Martin Luther King Day, and staff have had that as a professional learning day. We moved that out, so that would be a day off for kids and staff. The main highlights, I think.
Those are the main things.
Any questions from board members?
So what comments were there from faculty when they reviewed it and staff?
The survey that we sent out didn't have a spot for comments. It was just what's the preference. And Mitch, I sent a link to you.
Yep.
Got the,
No, I want it big.
yep, that's it.
There we go.
Thank you.
Closed that at like 4:30 after school today. So it had the most current responses. We had 177 staff respond overall. And you see the top graph, the red is the calendar 2, the kind of altered draft. And then the blue is those who preferred the one that's much like this school year. And then we broke it down by certified and support staff so that you could see those preferences. There are 117 certified staff that responded and 60 support staff. And you can see a few more support staff of those who responded preferred calendar 1 than certified, but overall calendar 2 was preferred across.
The comments that we had, I mean, we vetted this through several different teacher committees and also through our leadership teams. And so the results that you saw in the calendars are a result of those conversations. So request for more collaboration time was a suggestion. That was something that they definitely have felt not having that second one this year. They felt that a great deal and feel that they would be better able to serve kids when they can collaborate more than what they've been able to do even this year. So that's why that second Wednesday of the month. And that was something that we shared with SiAC because we had heard that from staff and SiAC, that community members and parents that were on that. Their main concern about adding that was simply that the current BEAT program, that continued to have an opportunity for those families that can utilize that during the first early release, that's also available for that third Wednesday if we were to add it. And that's something that we would accommodate as well. So
All day childcare on Wednesdays because there's no
Nope.
principal, so that won't affect our service
Mhm.
at all for B.
that was the only thing. And they liked that we would designate which one so that it would be consistent for daycare purposes. So that was some feedback that we had from community members. And
And we recognize that our SiAC and our lead learning team and
Yeah.
a lot of those venues that we've vet things, so don't necessarily have strong support staff representation on them. So we really wanted to send it out to get feedback to see those staff members might prefer, and to just, collect some feedback from those support staff too, that are on some of those committees.
I'm one who's always been opposed to these calendars. And this one, I prefer calendar 1 with 179 instructional days, because you look back here, you got a 33-hour difference. That's 1 week of education, teacher-student education. If you take it averaging 7 hours a day, that's nearly 5 days. It's 4.5 days. And I just think it's very important that we have that direct teacher-student contact. I'm not quite as opposed to forgiving some hours if we get into snow vacation time, so we don't have to go past Memorial Day weekend. That doesn't bother me so much in retrospect to do that, but to have this 35 or 33 hours, which is basically 1 week of learning difference, I think that is substantial.
we have about 7 hours in our school day right now. So that's about 4 days, a little over 4 days. You're absolutely correct. One thing we did check into to see how many student contact days our conference schools had, and they were 177, 178. That's where the majority of the conference schools were. So that is something that we looked at as well to see that we were comparable as far as, and we have a longer day than most of our conference.
Our current hours this school year is around 1160.
11 what?
1160 is what we had estimated on last year's calendar, though I wonder now that I recalculated.
8 probably.
It was close to the 1150, but we're well above all of our conference schools with that number of hours. The next highest on the data collected is 1141.
And Jill, what's the absolute minimum?
1,080.
180.
And that's what I thought.
One thing that my staff just overly said was that the calendar 2, was that the right one? Sorry,
Mhm.
calling it funky calendar, is
The
that number
funky
2?
one, the
Um,
one that we kind of messed with.
Yeah, I think that's really what they've been asking for. They are working so hard and they are so burnt out, and that gives them a breath of air throughout the year, which I think would result in higher quality education. I'm gonna be real honest, because right now they're just going and there's no days to breathe, and they are after school and before school, and that gives them some days to breathe. Yeah, we can make up the snow days throughout the year in it if we need to, or it gives them a day to breathe. And, if we have a snow day, also a day to breathe. So, I mean, I think honoring how hard they're working and spreading out those breaks that way too, especially since the families at SiAC and other places that they've looked at have said that that this is a workable calendar and these are things that they need. I think that staff really feel honored and valued from the flexibility of the calendar number 2.
Well, and we've talked about what we can do for our staff. I mean, what positive things we can do for our staff.
I would add that, I know, just speaking at Franklin, although our instructional day is 7 hours, our student contact time is 7 hours and 40 minutes a day.
Yes.
So because students come in at 7:45, then the dismissal bell is at 3:25. So although they don't have all of their students from 7:45 to 8:15, that's still student contact time for teachers that they don't have to plan, prepare, touch base with colleagues, discuss students, brainstorm ideas for students who may be struggling with learning. So that time, so any of those things have to typically happen outside of their contracted day, meetings, any of those kinds of.
And then the hours written on those drafts are what would be reported to the state, because we have to report from start time to end time and take out lunch time. That doesn't mean that's not student contact time like Brad is talking about. So those are state reportable hours. Based on whichever building, I think it's the elementary stuff, the shortest school day, which doesn't feel short, but it's based on whatever building is the shortest, because that's how we're required to report to the department.
There was a question regarding support staff and keeping their hours correct. Was that resolved?
Well, I think the individuals that selected the first calendar from our support staff, I think they're looking at the number of days that they would be able to be working. And so what I've done this year is I've offered PD during that time, and that's something I'm open to looking at, providing more opportunities for that. I do have about 70% attendance rate at those, 67% in November, 72% in December for the ones that we've done this year. So that's about the number of staff that attend those. So I'm open to that if that's something the board would like to continue to do, is provide opportunities for the support staff. But that's something we can also still decide. I don't know that anything's resolved other than, I mean, we wanted them to see the drafts and be able to weigh in on what their feelings were.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
I just maybe make a comment in regards to, I understand the hour standpoint, but I also understand on the teacher front of kind of in the climate we're into right now is, obviously we want to have retained teachers. We want to have great teachers in our district. So this one would be a hard one for me to not go against what most or the majority, I guess, within our district are looking for that voted upon. And I understand our students are important in that aspect too, as far as the amount of hours they're in the classroom and all that, but I also would probably lean towards more on the individuals that took the part in the survey as well too.
And to be honest, most of the teachers are working those flex days on their own time anyways. And giving them to them as contract days, I think would go a long ways to one of our goals is showing that we support them after a couple of hard years. So we're the Board of Education, so it's our goal to educate students, but I feel like maybe next year is a good time to try a calendar with slightly reduced hours, hoping that we show our staff that we really appreciate what they've done the last couple of years.
Now, we talked to a few parents. Have we gotten any feedback? Did we send this calendar out to these two calendars out in any of the electronic
I have not yet.
media?
I can certainly do that because we'll be looking at this again in February because it's correct.
Yeah, next month will be another
Yeah,
hearing and then
so-
approval.
I was surprised at SiAC, I would bet was 100% in favor of, there was overwhelming, which is a lot of parents,
From with
their support for the,
For the second one.
second one.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would venture that the most
Yeah.
parents.
I'm happy to send that out so that you have that information before you're voting for which calendar you feel you would like to have.
We've heard a lot from the teachers, but we
Absolutely.
haven't heard from the other
Mhm.
end, which is the parents.
Absolutely.
So that would be,
Yeah, the only parental input we've had is for what we made on calendar 2 based on their input from SAC. That's it.
Showed them calendar 1,
Yeah, we showed them one and that's it.
notes and feedback we had from them, we drafted calendar, something similar to calendar 2 that then went to the teacher and admin team.
So the parents on SiAC saw calendar 1, they did not see calendar 2. Calendar 2 was developed as a result of the conversation that happened at SiAC. And then again, calendar 2 is then again vetted with staff again after we made those changes. And so we can absolutely send that out to the community at large so they can.
the SiAC, they were,
I just meant that there was a consensus of what they wanted.
Mhm.
Being done
there
at a
was
certain
no-
time, the beep care and the built-in snow days
Okay.
was
Mhm.
spoken loudly. I felt like.
The snow days ending before late Memorial Day. I agree with that because you don't get a whole lot more learning done if it's 2 or 3 days afterwards. So that, to take those off the hours at the end of the year, I don't have a huge problem with it to keep us out by Memorial Day weekend. I just 33 hours thing and almost a week of education. It's the one thing that bothers me. I'd like,
Happen, we would have.
parents are all happy with it, they'll be happy with it.
Yep. And I can say from the conference, I have the conference goals brought up on my computer right now that the majority of them are around the same number of hours we have proposed in calendar 2. The lowest number of hours is 1103. And then it's 1118, 1105, 1119, 1117, 1128. So you can see the majority of them hover more around that than they did than around our other one. The closest that came to us was 1141. So those are the number of hours, and they range from 176 to the top of 179. Only one school at 179. The rest are, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 at 176, 1 at 177, rest are 178. So
One thing I would add to that, that we've all done at different levels, like Jill talked about, with the give and take of like how many hours staff are putting in to make the instruction better. Like middle school, we went back and added PLC time from 7:30 to 7:40. So while that used to be your contract time, you came in and you could plan, you could grade tests, you could have students come in, like that's structured time every day. Okay? 40 minutes times 180. We've added 120 hours during the year of mandatory work time that we're working in PLCs during that time. And so I think that's the give and take when we're talking about how hard the teachers are working to make that instruction better, the give, and so and I know that's just at our level, but each building has kind of structured those times differently. So I think sometimes I get that we look at that instructional time, which is important, but also I think we have increased that amount of time that the teachers are working so much that they're, that extra Wednesday in there to build in that support and do those things I think are important, just based on the number of hours of what the teachers are putting in to make education, where it is right now with the things that we have going on.
And I do think that there's something to consider here with, are we making up snow days or are we not? Because as we surveyed our conference schools, some may have 179 days, but they'd say we don't make up our snow days.
Right.
We intend not to. So if our policy is that we intend to make them up, we may have 177 with everything all made up, and another district may land at 175 because they don't make them up and they started with 178 or whatever it might be. So there's something at play there too when you're trying to compare across districts. It makes it hard because they may have more days or less days, but they may not make up snow days, or they may say we make up the first 2 and then we consider adding hours to the end of the day, the end of every day, or something like that. So each district kind of does things a little bit differently, and that is for you all to consider and determine what will be best for us here in Boone.
If you have these building snow days, let's say the one that is on February 13th.
13th and then April 10th and 11th.
Okay, so when are we going to declare if we're going to have school that day or not? What if we have a snow day on February 11th? We're going to say, okay, we're going to go to school on the 13th, or is that
So
enough notice to the parents?
So I would want to tell them from the beginning that if there is a snow day prior to that day, we will have school on the 13th. That would be the first day that we would make up. And then, kind of give the order that we would do it before we had any snow days. I'd want them to know that's what we would be doing. Because at least in my previous experience, that worked well when we told them, if we have a snow day up to this point, this is the day that we will be making it up. So everyone knew, like, in August, when it was still 90 degrees out, this is what day we'll make up if this happens prior to this date. So that would be my suggestion, but we could do it however we wanted. We could set a date that if it wasn't made up, done by that time, we could do it.
I think that's
Yeah, I just think
a
we
real
have
good
to,
way to address that.
So that would give you, if it was on the 10th and we had to have a snow day, okay, fine, we're at school on Monday then.
Yeah.
But we needed to, that's something we could decide at a later date.
Yeah. And again, it's communicating,
Mhm.
getting it out there. Yeah.
I would prefer to tell people
Right away.
far in advance versus saying, like, the first time the snow day comes up, I would like to tell them in advance.
Right away.
well, I'm just concerned the parents would all of a sudden see that day and say, okay, the 13th, I'll schedule, go out of town, or I'll schedule, my child needs an appointment with the orthodontist, I'll schedule for that day, and then all of a sudden,
There's a lot of
Right.
applicants for that too.
Which is why if they make that appointment knowing that we could be making that up, that's a different story than if you make it thinking it's free to you, you know what I mean? So that's why I think it'd just be really important for us to decide from the start how we wanted to handle it. And that was one of the suggestions that came where those were placed. When we originally talked as a SIAC committee, we had talked about some other dates and we moved it back where 2 of the dates are in April to give more opportunity to actually make up the days, because oftentimes in the last several years, we haven't seen snow until January. So we think later the better. I know, where's my wood, the knock on, but yeah. So that was part of the reason for the placement of those. But we'll send those out so that then before the next meeting, we'll have the information from the parent side as well as the staff.
We'll take action on it at the next meeting.
Yep.
Anything else? Nothing written at this point, Mitch, I'm guessing.
No.
Is it okay to close the public hearing then at 6:58?
Yep.
On to number 2, activating community voices, Erickson Library presentation.
Yeah, we have Mr. Z here to present to us. That's what we call him in school anyway. And our students from Boone were very active participants in this project. So Zach's going to share a little bit about that.
You want my mouse?
Oh, yeah.
That'd be easier for you. There you go. Yep.
Go through a 25-page report at 7 p.m. I'll go over part of it. So I am Zach Steer, Mr. Z from the Erickson Public Library. I see so many familiar faces here. I'm just going to give you a brief overview about this project. As it says here, it's activating community voices. Logo is ours. So I'm going to go ahead and just walk through the process here as to how we kind of develop this. So back in May of last year, I had approached our director, Jamie Williams, about a possible grant for the American Library Association. This grant is specific to community conversation. Specifically, it was looking at equity at that time. So back in fall of, we had a conversation focused on equity and COVID-19, and really trying to understand how COVID has obviously affected at that time and still currently affecting equitable areas in specifically. So what was really cool about this initially was we had community stakeholders, Boone Community School District, Julie and Dr. James is a part of that, come together collectively to really identify what those specific equitable concerns were, and then from there, trying to figure out how to spearhead new opportunities. So my role, even on the children's librarian, really focusing on K-5 all the way up to grade services, is also to really help create and facilitate a conversation. So in May of last year, we had this grant opportunity come up. It's a federal grant, so as you can imagine, the competition is pretty steep on that. But my mantra is go big or go home. The worst thing they can say is no. So director gave approval and then wrote it, and then we received it in May of last year. No need to hear me. That's this video is what I just said. This specific project, though, just focused on the dimensions of equity, and I'm going to talk about that in just a second.
Is it working?
There's your mouse.
So, Jamie Williams, our director here, I believe this report was sent out to all administrators as well. I'm not going to read this specifically, but I had asked her to give a statement. As the director of the library, and a couple things jumped out at me when she provided me this statement. Is this project was taken on by our library to really invest and think about our families and community members, how they face difficult issues from adequate transportation, housing, mental health assistance,
inclusive learning environments, and even community planning to create more equitable opportunities. And that statement in itself really provides a great summary as to what this project has done and will continue to do as well. Now, specifically to this project, there was two goals. So as you can see at the beginning, pre-grant, right? We had the civic stakeholders participating in community school district, the RSVP program, Boost Together for Children, which is part of the Early Childhood of Iowa, DMAC, Space Science Institute. That seems kind of silly not being part of our community. However, we are an asset at my library site, so they wanted to jump on board and participate as well. Imagine the Possibilities, which was also at one time Genesis Development, Impact, Iowa State University College of Design. We're working with Dr. Jan Rongaroo to help evaluate and analyze this data in this project moving forward. YMCA camp, the 1Y camp, and Kerna transfer. Is it Kerna? Yes, it's Kerna.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So those were our initial stakeholders, and so we met with them before or after I think we received this grant to really figure out how we wanted to move forward. So when we put it out to the community as to what we were doing and to register, and I'll get to what they were registering, we wanted to ask and understand what equity meant to them. So this word cloud here provides words that were part of their response. That are larger, obviously, are the ones that are the most common. So justice, equal, fairness, and opportunity. As we took that information to really develop what we now have, which is the Activating Community Voices Symposium that happened in October of last year. And you can see below frequency numbers of the words as well. Before I play this video really represents to me just how powerful community partners are, especially with our school district. This video was made by an Ed student, and I'll talk about the Ed students and how they participated. But I'm going to go ahead and just play this. I don't think it's too long, if that's okay.
That the students would pick a topic that they felt needed more attention in our area. Mr. Z wanted to bring in students to hear from a different demographic in our community that are passionate about some of these topics.
So we got involved with this project. Mr. Z is a good partner of EDGE, and he approached us about an authentic project and wanting to get student voices in the community. The symposium was bringing community voices, but he felt like we were missing a demographic of our young people. So he came to me and asked if we could get some elementary, middle school, high school voices involved to hear what matters to them so that we didn't miss hearing their story along the way. So we opened this project up not only just to students, but to all students during our win time to allow anybody who wanted to share their voice and be heard. And it was our first middle school EDGE project as well. And it was really fun to just kind of see kind of trends that developed throughout our high schoolers and middle school students on this topic.
Julia Brooks is very passionate about suicide awareness and how it is hard for students to find resources when they are in need.
My equity topic was suicide awareness because a lot of resources are hard to get to, especially for income, poverty. They're really hard to get to. So it's all about creating that equal access to stuff.
Boone High student Leah Bloom helped behind the scenes at the Equity Summit.
So I actually helped with the whole event planning process of the Equity Summit. So I helped put together the information packets and the name tag. And I volunteered at the welcome desk.
This summit was a great opportunity for many students at Boone High School to find a way we can improve our community. But it was a good way for them to find out something that they may have not known or thought of before. This has been Hannah TV.
Okay. So this video obviously really kind of sums up the symposium, but there was some specific goals that we wanted. We wanted to make sure that we provided a diverse slate of speakers from a variety of organizations, from transportation, education, mental health, housing, elderly, creativity, and the arts as well. So we had 84 attend, which is pretty great. 3 keynote speakers. So we started, I don't know, 9 o'clock and then around 4-ish. So we had 3 keynotes going throughout the day, and then we had 10 breakout sessions. So attendees could choose whatever session that they wanted, and then we shared presentation slides and stuff with the attendees as well. Now, as Lindsay Hyman had discussed, remember, we got this in May. We did this in October. In library land, summer reading is a very busy time for me. So I knew, though, going into this, we had to have youth involved because they are they're the next generation. They need their voices heard. So I approached Lindsay, discussed this project in May, and I had to hold on tight until the beginning of the new year and cross my fingers and hope for the best. So we started with 10 students, it's a great number, and it climbed to 35, 40 in the end. And they provided poster sessions on Etsy and this video as well. Our first keynote speaker was Ryan Wazowski. Sounds like Monsters Inc. Sorry. My children's librarian. Great career. And they are part of the Grable Foundation in Philadelphia. I'm a huge Mr. Rogers fan. Went to a bookstore, saw their new book, had to bring them, and so they presented on the topic of their book, When You Wonder You're Learning, which is all about Mr. Rogers.
There you go. Go left. That's it. I have 2 monitors going.
Okay,
there you go.
Okay. We got this. Okay. So I also, I don't know if you've noticed throughout this report, I didn't want to just provide a narrative. I wanted to focus on data storytelling, right? Elevating this report, working with the University of Illinois and figuring out how to capture data and information without it being so dry, right? Sorry, but really capturing the story. So these pins here represent the locations, obviously more right here in Iowa, but we had somebody drive quick from Colorado, which is from the Space Science Institute. Didn't want any refund or a reimbursement. They just wanted to come out here as well. We had folks in Chicago and then folks coming from Philadelphia, which Ryan Wazowski was our speaker for that. So if you were to go in here with the mouse, you can click on those pins as well. This is Ryan here, and this is their book. And I'm just going to pause because I know you have a full agenda here. So no need for me to play this, but if you were to go back, he'll provide his message and statement about the symposium as well as his reflection on Mr. Rogers. So this is the first line of our speakers. So keynote, starting on this side, and then we had all of our breakout sessions here. As you can see, we had folks from mental health, Oak Ridge neighborhood, which is in Des Moines, focusing on urban how urban communities and rural communities can work together. Aging resources of Central Iowa, focusing on senior resources. I had to bring a farmer in as well, talk about agriculture and equity and food disparaging. And then we had medicine here. And then if you click on each of them, you'll get to know them and information about the organization. These are the rest of our speakers here, focusing on environmental sustainability, and we actually had 3 youth be part of this keynote for Dr. Das, and then focusing on, like I said, some creativity in the arts for these 2, and then an early childhood focus as well. Really trying our best to cover as many bases as possible and look at the dimensions of equity. This is Jordan Brooks. Again, this is another video that you can watch, and it provides a testament to experience, and Thomas Rendon as well. Drew Nelson from the DMAC Provost. This video, go back and listen to this one. We wanted to add this to talk about partnerships and how this unique partnership with DMAC benefits our community as well. And they hosted us for this event. participated and staff and volunteers. I can't say enough about Hvac and what they were able to provide us as well. So this is where the EDGE program comes in here. It's your graphic, I gave you credit, but I think it speaks volumes as to the 6 specific areas here and how this specific project helps connect with those specific program areas too. So 32 students attended in 14 different equity areas. At the bottom here are the topics that were presented at the symposium. So again, they also covered many equitable areas too. Almost done here. So this video will also, this one's not that. This is the EDGE program. Then access to all the presentations is also included in this report too. And this is Dr. Jane Ronderud. She and I have been working very closely on this specific project, and then moving forward, we're going to analyze data. We're going to work on publication of this and do more presentations like this as well as we go forward. So that statement is in there too. And then more testimonial videos here. So view those as well. And survey results from the symposium. So those are included there too. And then this will give you information about our preliminary document when we met last May and what our next steps forward are. Again, we're focusing on programmatic pieces of equity and figuring out how we can develop more programs in our community by working together as well. So that's my report. Any questions?
Just want to say thank you. The Boone's really lucky to have you and the library. You do so many wonderful things. This is just another good example of the value that our partnership in the library brings to Boone. So it's really appreciate it. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mitch, you can push that out to us for review later.
Yep, I'll send it out.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, on number 3, middle school update.
Can stop.
Oh, okay.
I think whenever you're ready, Scott.
Right, well, we just decided to put a little update together for the buildings, how things are going, share some that we have going on at the building. And so we've shared quite a few times throughout the year about our proficiency scale work and the work we're doing. And I just feel that's a huge celebration. I just briefly earlier talked about the amount of hours and time that the staff have put into that. And I think really as we've kind of come together, from here to this point, we've really gotten precise into what we're looking at, what we're working with. Going into year 4 and 5, we've really stayed consistent with that schedule of where we were going to be at, how we're going to implement this. And I just feel we're in a really, really good place throughout this year. Kind of been the year of trying to look at where people are at every Wednesday early out. We've got Judy Zika from the AEA continuing to work on scale work. We've got check-ins every week with myself and the school, making sure where people are in the process, where they need help with, if we need to schedule extra time. And then a third group where the teachers are just working together in their groups on those Wednesdays to work through that work. So I feel like we're in a really good place with that. The teachers have put a ton of hours in over the last 4 or 5 years, and I'm really confident that we're in a good place to implement that for next year. Along with some of that, some of the things we're excited to get back is our intervention time and our lab classes back this year. As we lost some of that stuff to the scheduling last year, while it's a lot of time to add back in, like I stated earlier, a lot of those things get taken away, and really have kind of stepped on the toes of teacher time and personal time, how much time they have to plan, taking away that stuff. So that's been very valuable to have those things added back in. We've been able to implement our data days this year. We're doing data days in reading and math. We're having our AEA staff come in, Andy Carpenter's coming in and working with all of our math teachers. And so we're able to look at our instruction, where we're going, what we're getting out of that. We're looking at the numeracy work that we're providing. And some of our BCSD times, we're looking at how we're implementing our illustrative series throughout the schedule. We've scheduled some illustrative math walkthroughs to be able to get into the classrooms and see what are we looking for, are we seeing in that classroom, are we getting the results that we're looking for out of that. So that's been good to add that stuff back in. Through several years ago, before COVID, is when we had our ESSA designation. While they've kind of had all that stuff on pause, we've still continued to do that work. And so part of that work was building communication and making sure teachers had a voice in what we were working on, where we were at in that process. And so this year we had created a solutions desk for building communication. And so we have an area where teachers can input and not have to wait till the end of the year or next year. They simply input their solution and then how they want that addressed at our weekly building meeting that we meet every Monday morning, through an email, through our PLC leads. And so that's been a shift that's allowed people to get questions right away and not have to wait for feedback for some of those things. Along with that, we've done a shift in our PLC leads. We tried to get that to be more of a management position to a leadership position. And how do we get those people to feel like they're leading the initiatives? It's not just always the top-down administrators telling people what to do. And so we brought some people in from the AEA and worked with that staff to provide input and to help make building decisions with their input to drive that instruction. So that's gone really well this year. And then just our instructional coaches are amazing. I can't say there's not even words to say how much work they put in to drive this work. Sometimes we talk about that process and how successful I feel that's been for Boone and how we utilize those staff. They're amazing. They do so many things. This year, we've tied our IPDPs, our individual professional development plans, into our high reliability framework. So we'll just be more intentional with everything. Everything is really just tied together in that aspect. So that's kind of that PLC side of the work that we've been doing. A couple of other things that I've been excited about. Just like you shared, we've been working with Lindsay and Edge programs, providing some of that stuff to our students as they prepare for that transition, knowing that some of those students kind of are losing base and losing some of the interest in some of those areas. Right before break, we were supposed to have they just partnership with Lane Trailer for some welding stuff, and we had about 12 middle school students signed up to that to come over and participate in that. It's been rescheduled, but they were super excited to start going down that apprenticeship type area and looking at some of those areas. And I think when we can hit those interests for students, that really keeps them involved in school and wanting to be there when we can find those things that they're interested in. So we're excited to get that rescheduled. And then fairly recently, Jill just submitted a STEM HD grant. So we had We went and visited Lewis Central before break, and we're looking at their recycling program that has kind of become fairly well known throughout the state. And in doing that, we had decided that recycling maybe wasn't going to be our passion. While there were some good things from that, we decided to write a grant and tie that into manufacturing. And so we'll put a ton of work in there. Myself and Jill, JC Carter and Lindsay went to Lewis Central, visited Edge, came up with some ideas. And so we wrote, I don't know what me and Jill, how much is the grant?
If we get it, we would receive 40,000.
About $40,000 of things. So some of those things that we were looking at through manufacturing at the middle school level would be injection molding, plastics at the high school, some metal cutting, and also some virtual welding. So we would incorporate that if we get the grant through our club day and through some of our STEM programs. So excited, more coming thanks to Jill. She put a ton of work in and did almost all the paperwork and legwork behind
No,
it.
but kudos to Scott because it was your idea and you did the legwork to think about how we'd implement. So
Yeah, we're excited for that. I know since we've been a leader in that, I hope that that's going to be a big possibility that we'll hopefully find out at the beginning of February. So those are some of the, I guess, a few of the things we're working on. One other thing that I thought I'd share that I shared with Julie last week, because I do think this is a celebration. Oftentimes when we look at our special ed numbers and where our students are at, where did we miss things? We were always looking at where did we miss literacy? Where did we miss numeracy? What are those projects? And so I had been wanting to look at our numbers for a while. And so I looked at our special ed numbers, and out of about 122 IEPs in the middle school right now, about 50 of those we've inherited that have just come to us. So that's moving out of the district, students that went to Sacred Heart and then transitioned in, students that went to United and then transitioned in 6th, 7th grade and moved into the district. So when I look at numbers that we don't have control over, I know oftentimes we've talked about special ed and our deficit and where those numbers are at. I think when you take things that we have no control over, that's a number that we don't have control over. And one of the other numbers I threw in there that that you can add to that number is like our level 3 students, our severe and profound students didn't come in and have a missed opportunity in education. That's a different level of learning that we're working with those students. And so when we look at those move-ins, we have 5 new students that started at the middle school today. We're at 78 new students for the school year. I know that's not counting. I'm sure we probably had 20 to 30 move-outs throughout the year. So I don't know what the net number that is. But when you take our level 3 students and the move-ins, that puts us close to 50% of our IEPs out of 122 IEPs at the middle school that are part of our system that we haven't had control over. So when I looked those up, to me, that was a celebration of how well we're doing with our staff. Sometimes I think we feel guilty about our numbers, how many students we have, and we over-identify. And to me, that was good information that we're not over-identifying, that we're not missing these huge gaps at earlier levels or middle levels. While we do still have a lot of students to work with, I just felt like that was a celebration and looking at those numbers of they come to us, we take them. So excited to get them all and that this year. Any questions?
Have you guys recovered from the power outage?
The transformer out on First Street, something happened to it, went out. I did have Mr. Titman ask me which transformer it was, so we could back into it every once in a while. We had the staff work that morning in PLC groups. Some of them did virtual, and then they all did come back into the building by PD time and were there for the afternoon.
Okay.
Is everything back up running? Are we still?
Everything's back up. And we've had some heat issues last week on and off that Brian's been working with, combination of.
I think we're still waiting for some parts too.
For some parts that we got ordered, but today we were in pretty good shape.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Okay, number 4 is resolution fixing the date of sale, approving electronic bidding procedures, and approving official statement. I think it's probably Mitch or Julie.
Yeah, Mitch is
Yep.
going to talk about the next two.
So these next two items are very similar. The first one is for the general obligation refunding bond that we're doing to save interest. And the next one is for the high school gym and HVAC overage. What you'll be approving tonight is fixing the date of sale, which is January 24th. We have a special meeting and work session that night. And we'll approve those there. Approving the electronic bidding procedures will be electronic instead of paper. And then the official statement, which you all received last week. So it's just receiving all of those items for both issues.
Unless there's any questions, I think there is a motion provided, right?
Yep.
I'd entertain a motion if
Motion
ready.
down here.
I'll move to approve the resolution fixing the date of sale. The account improving the electronic bidding procedures and approving official statement for the $6,115,000 general obligation refinancing bond series 2022.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and second. And are there any questions or further discussion? If none, all those in favor, aye.
Roll call, yeah, it's
Oh,
a
roll
roll call.
call.
Just look at here.
Okay, go ahead, Mitch.
Alphon,
Yes.
Nystrom,
Yes.
Hillhouse,
Yeah.
Eben,
Yes.
Pritchard.
Yes.
Okay.
Motion carries. Number 5 is again, resolution fixing the date of sale, approving electronic bidding procedures and approving the official statement.
So that's same as before, just for the issue for the gym renovation and the leftover HVAC costs.
I move to approve the resolution fixing the date of sale to January 24th, approving electronic bidding procedures and approving official statement for the 3.1 million school infrastructure sales services and use tax revenue bond series 2022-8.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and second. Mitch, go ahead and call the roll, please.
Alphon,
Yes.
Nystrom,
Yes.
Hillhouse,
Yes.
Eben,
Yes.
Pritchard.
Yes.
Okay.
Motion carries. On to number 6. Claim aid business associate agreement. Julie?
Yeah, so this is something that the Iowa Department of Education requested that we do to ensure that we are in compliance with HIPAA. So that's the reason it's coming before you, is at the request of the Department of Education. It doesn't change anything with what we currently do or in the services that currently exist.
We're already using this group. We just have to have,
Yes.
Yes.
if this is for compliance reason.
Yep.
So the business associate is
Claim Aid Consulting
the
Corporation.
Claim Aid Consultant Organization. They have these responsibilities, because that was a dense piece to read.
And claiming what they do, they file our claim
Okay.
for us, so.
I mean, we still do all of the
We do the
recording
paperwork
and
and we-
paperwork and all of that. We haven't, that's not been outsourced. This is just. to
And
get, you know,
they create the reimbursement for us.
Okay.
So.
So I will move to approve the business association agreement between the Boone Community School District and Claim Aid Consulting Corporation.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And I have a motion and second. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Number 7, Terracon Construction Testing and Special Inspections Agreement for the building contract phase of the Early Childhood Center.
So there's testing and special inspections required as part of the next phase. So that's what this is Terracon is the organization that we've used before as well for other testing and special inspections. So that's the recommendation. And this is actually below the cost that we were expecting. So we were expecting a higher cost for this.
Do we have to see competitive bidding on this one, or we didn't find any, or
Their professional service.
professional service, we don't have to?
We've used them for a long, I mean, we pretty much always.
They did our pre-grading site and then a bunch of increasing too, so.
I know we've used them frequently. Just want to make sure.
Yeah, no.
No, we're fine.
I move to approve Terracon for construction testing and social inspections during construction of the building contract phase of the Early Childhood Center for DLR.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to number 8, modified supplemental amount for dropout prevention and at-risk report.
I'm
Yep.
gonna,
Every year, you guys know we have to pass a modified supplemental amount for dropout. 25% is local match and the rest is through our taxes. So not through our taxes, state payments. So this is just a normal annual motion that we have to do. The full amount for the program is $729,999 next year. So, and we use that fund for our at-risk programming, some of our guidance counselors, our IJAG staff. So
it gets well used.
Yeah,
everything related to preventing dropout.
yeah.
So this money's coming from a different account or money we're.
At 25% of it comes from our tax dollars coming in, and then the rest is from the state.
Designating where those funds go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good deal. We're every $25. We put in, the state puts in 75, so.
Okay.
So if someone's ready, I'd entertain a motion.
I'd move to approve the modified supplement amount for dropout prevention at risk for fiscal 2023 in the amount of $729,999.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Further questions? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 9, work-based learning coordinator sharing agreement. Julie.
Yes, so in your documents, you should have the sharing agreement that we've drafted with Ogden Community School District. We've met with Ogden and their staff to add to our work-based learning staff. We have Lindsay. They do not currently have a coordinator. That's why you see coordinator. Lindsay would not cease being our coordinator. This additional person would allow us to free Lindsay up to do the job she was actually hired to do and not be teaching some of the classes that she's currently teaching. So by sharing this individual, both of our districts will be able to benefit from having another MOC. That would be one of the requirements, is that they have that certification or be receiving it. And we would be able to attain sharing dollars as a result of this. You can get sharing dollars for sharing a work-based learning coordinator. And we would have approximately 75% to their 20 or 70% to 30%. I mean, we're pretty flexible. We're going to work with them to make whatever work the best for both of us, but 70-30 is kind of the tentative goal right now with sharing this individual. But we did already have a meeting with the Ogden superintendent, Ogden principal, and our principal, and Jill and I, to discuss what this might look like and how we think it'll be beneficial for all of us, and providing opportunities for both Ogden and Boone students that maybe aren't currently there without this position.
Can you refresh memory for those listening, the rest of us, as far as when we do these sharing agreements, we get a little bit of supplemental state aid.
So this one is worth 2 students worth. So the amount of state aid that we receive for 2 students is the amount of money we'd receive from the state, as would Ogden also receive that amount of money. Plus, since we're sharing this individual, Ogden will pay 30% of that portion of the cost of this individual that we hire as well. So it is at minimal cost to us, but maximum
Win-win.
benefit. And so we're excited at this because we have started to expand our work-based learning beyond just the high school, and we need to continue to do that. And hiring this individual will allow us to do that even more so than what we can do currently.
Do we have somebody in mind?
No.
Okay.
Do we have a time frame?
We will be posting it
We have a time frame though, that we are trying to.
as soon as we can put the posting up. It will be up so that we can try and,
Once it's approved,
Recruit
we can
top,
get
yeah.
it posted, so.
yeah, we can recruit highly qualified individuals.
A majority of the responsibilities are the Boone districts. And so as you go into the hiring process, I hope
Yes.
it works.
I move to approve the sharing agreement with Ogden Community School District.
I'll second.
I have a motion and second. Any questions? I do have one question. How is this job reimbursed? Is it on the teacher pay scale or is it like?
It's a
on
teacher pay scale.
Okay. Any further questions? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Let's see here. Number 10, fiscal year 21 audit presentation, Mitch.
All right, we have Alex Barr with Anderson Larkin with us tonight. Alex, do you want to share the screen or do you want me to put the audit up?
Can you put the audit up?
Yes, let me. Okay, let me share my screen here. All right.
Okay, well, thanks for having me, Mitch. Yeah, my name's Alex Barr. I'm a partner at Anderson Larkin. We're the auditing firm that did the fiscal year 21 audit. So I'm here tonight to review the audit report, and then we also have a letter to the board of directors. And so I'll start with the audit report. If you want to follow along or on the screen, if we can scroll to page 2. So page 2 is what referred to as the independent auditor's report. We're paid to provide an opinion on the financial statements and whether they're fairly stated. And the last paragraph on page 2 is our opinion on the financial statements. So I'll read that for you. In our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities, business type activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of Boone Community School District at June 30th, 2021, and the respective changes in financial position and where applicable, its cash flows thereof for the year then ended in accordance with U.S. generally accepted accounting principles. So this is what's called an unmodified opinion. It's the best opinion we can issue to a school district. Turn to page 4. So pages 4 through 13 is what's called the management's discussion and analysis. It's a good synopsis of the entire audit report. And so if you don't read the entire audit report, I'd encourage you to at least read pages 4 through 13. This is something that Mitch also helps draft. And so it's a very good summary of the year. So I'll refer you now to page 9 within the MD&A. So page 9 is the government-wide financial analysis. This is the assets, liabilities, and net position of both governmental activities and business type activities and total for the district. So I'm going to focus on the total district column, the 2021 column, just go over the major totals. Total assets as of June 30th, 21 were $73,116,248. That's a $1.9 million increase. Then farther down, deferred outflows of resources were $3,295,461. That's a $300,000 increase. Farther down, total liabilities as of June 30th, 21 were $40,946,383. That's a $294,000 increase. Deferred inflows of resources, which is related to IPERS, totaled $12,295,079. So near the bottom, overall total net position of the Boone School District as of June 30th, 21 were $23,170,247. That's a $3.5 million increase from June 30th of 20. Turn to page 10. So this is the changes in net position for the school district. Again, in comparative format. So I'm going to focus again on the total district column for 21. Total revenue is about halfway down. We're $34,691,008. That's a $2 million increase. Farther down, total expenses for the year were $31,237,076. That's a $1 million increase. So near the bottom, change in net position overall for the year was $3,453,932. That means revenues exceeded expenses by that amount for the fiscal year. Now we can go to page 26.
Too far.
Pages 26 through 44 are the notes to the financial statements. We typically don't review these in detail at the board meeting, but I'd encourage the readers to read the notes because they provide additional detail on what's in the audit report and provide detail about the financial statement balances. So we can go to page 45. So pages 45 and 46 is the budget to actual comparison. This schedule compares budget revenues and expenses versus actual revenues and expenses. And so on page 45 and 46, within the expenditure category on the far right, you'll notice that none of the expenditure items exceeded budget. So I just want to point out that the budget was not exceeded during the year. So that's a good job by Mitch. Turn to page 69.
Get a headache, sorry. Skimming through these pages.
I want to treat seizures tonight.
No, we don't.
All right, we're there.
Page 69 through the end of the audit report is the schedule of findings and question costs. So any internal control issues, expenditure issues, budget issues, or any other findings we have would be on pages 69 through the end of the report. And so I'll refer you to the bottom of page 69, segregation of duties. So this is a historical comment about segregation of duties that basically says
exactly.
You haven't segregated duties to the satisfaction of what auditing and accounting standards would require. Basically due to the size of staff and how the duties are segregated. So I'm sure this comment's probably been in the audit for quite some time.
Boys.
Now we can go to page 70. So there's one more comment, that's probably historical comment as well, 2B-21, financial statement preparation. The auditing standards require theoretically the district to prepare the audit report and the financial statements. And in most cases, probably for us, about 100% of cases, we always prepare the audit report. And so this comment basically says that we're preparing the audit report and not the district, and a recommendation that they consider it in the future possibly. So turn to page 72. At the bottom of page 72, we have one more comment that I wanted to point out, deficit balance. So there's a deficit balance in the other capital projects fund as of the end of the year. And I'm sure that's probably going to be cleared out in fiscal year 22, Mitch.
Yeah, so those are the expenditures we incurred for the gym and the homeschooling futures building that we don't have bonds to pay for yet. So
yeah. So that should be probably eliminated next year. So any questions or comments on the audit report portion?
I do have a question, and I want people listening to understand that in the past, many years ago before I was on the board, we had some problems with audits and some embezzlement. So there has been an audit committee of community members that have reviewed this. I understand that committee did meet this year and there's at least 2 CPAs on that committee and they have approved this. And they felt that this was a good report. Is that correct?
That's correct. They were incredibly thorough. They donated a lot of their own time and I was very impressed with them and the level of detail that they put into this. So it was
I'd like to thank those people
Yeah,
who
for
did
sure.
that and also recognize that this one thing the district has been doing for many years to provide that second level of security.
Yeah, we appreciate that too, so. So if there's no more questions on the audit report, I'll refer you to the 2-page letter to the board. I don't know, Mitch, do you have that you can put on the screen?
Oh, let me find my email here.
Yeah.
Have it printed in front of them.
Yeah.
Oh, do you? Okay.
I'll put it on the screen too.
Okay.
Gotta find it here. Alrighty.
Okay, thanks. So this is our letter to the Board of Education. It's our standard communication that we issue with all government audits. Sort of a summary and hit some key points. And so I'll refer you to the second paragraph where it says qualitative aspects of accounting practices. And that second paragraph talks about if there is any new accounting policies during the year, we highlight those for the board. And so the second paragraph talks about GASB 84 fiduciary activities, which we implemented in fiscal year 21. There's also a note in the financial statements that talks about it. So this basically impacted the fiduciary fund. So that's been reflected in the financial statements. Then the last 2 sentences I'll read. We noted no transactions entered into by Boone Community School District during the year, there's a lack of authoritative guidance or consensus. All significant transactions have been recognized in the financial statements in the proper period. So that's a good statement about Mitch's accounting. Then the next paragraph talks about accounting estimates. If there's estimates included in the financial statements, we're required to report those on this letter. And so in this case, we've identified depreciation as an estimate in the financial statements because it's based on estimated useful life. Farther down, difficulties encountered in performing the audit, there were none. This was a first-year audit for us, and so sometimes you don't know what to expect, but Mitch was very well prepared, and for a first-year audit, I thought it went fairly smooth. So we appreciate everything Mitch did for us. Farther down, corrected and uncorrected misstatements, there were none. We had a few adjustments to the financial statements, and this paragraph basically says that there's nothing that wasn't corrected. Everything was reflected in the financial statements. Disagreements with management, there were none. Then page 2, management representations refers to the representation letter that Mitchell signed to conclude the audit. This letter basically says that he agrees with everything that's reported in the financial statements and the notes. Next paragraph, management consultations with other independent accountants. The only consultation I'm aware of is both Mitch and myself talking to the prior auditors. We're required to review the prior auditor work papers when we're the new auditor. And so we both communicated with the prior auditors to review the prior work papers. And other findings or issues, there were none. So that's a short summary of the letter to the board. So that concludes what I was going to present tonight, but if there's any comments or questions or now or after the meeting, I'd be happy to answer them.
questions?
Nice work, Mitch.
Thank you, Mitch.
Good job, Mitch. Julie.
We have
I
a
would-
good group, we have a good staff in our office and good auditors, so we're pretty lucky. So
Again, I would just say, again, I'm part of the audit committee and the accountants that were on that were just so
They do an excellent job.
precise and looking at every little thing on there. So I was really appreciative of the CPAs and other members that were on that audit committee.
And having the reports from Mitch look good and then a clean opinion, and then the audit committee, 3 layers, I think we feel pretty good about the position we're in, so keep up the good work. We need a motion to accept this, Mitch?
Yes. I'll move to accept the audit report from Anderson Larkin as presented.
Been moved, is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Further questions or discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night. Okay.
Okay, number 11, OSHA ETS update, Julie?
Yeah, so on Friday evening, Iowa's OSHA commissioner made a statement that the state OSHA standards, they feel the state OSHA standards are at least as effective as the federal standard change. Therefore, Iowa OSHA is not planning to enforce the federal OSHA ETS. And so we need to pause our enforcement of the policies that we put into place last week. And until there's other action that may cause us to revisit that. So I believe I have shared with you a motion that could be made to make that happen.
For discussion purposes, I'll move to pause implementation of policies 403.8, 403.8E1, 403.8E2, 403.8E3, 403.8R1, and 403.8R2 regarding COVID vaccination in response to the Iowa OSHA not enforcing the ETS unless or until a court or other governing body requires the district to enforce these practices. I move that the board directs the superintendent to communicate with employees if these policies will be enforced.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions?
I'll just say this is the pendulum moving back and forth. Unfortunately, I have to read about it every day, and this won't be our last vote.
Anything else? Mitch, let's call the roll on.
Roll call. Elfon,
Yes.
Nystrom,
Yes.
Hellhouse,
Yes.
Keeman,
Yes.
Richard.
Yes. Motion carries. Number 12, superintendent's report.
Yeah, so I think moving forward after this, we will have an agenda item to just have building project updates since we're starting to get rolling on all of our projects now. So I was going to just start with some building updates. So our elementary project, today, the Planning and Zoning Committee voted 7-0 to approve that and move it forward to the City Council for next week. That's where we are with elementary project. I think we've got everything winterized, ready to go for the, winter. So waiting now for winter to be over so we can start breaking ground, but that's the latest on elementary. HSAP and futures on January 19th. It'll come before the board to approve construction bids. So that's where we are with that until the 19th. We're kind of on hold, waiting for that to transpire. And then the gym remodel and HVAC projects, we had our pre-construction meetings recently, and we'll begin our work during spring break to get going on those projects. So exciting that we're actually started on some of these, and we're just a few short weeks away from starting the gym remodel. Every time I'm at a basketball game, I think about what it's going to look like. So excited about the projects, all of them moving forward so far on time. That was the other maybe celebration, is that when we had our pre-construction meetings, all of our bidders had said that they are confident that they think that there will be no issues with getting materials right now as they continue to look at the dates, how far ahead do we need to order. They feel that we'll be able to be on time. The project timelines that we've been given thus far made me feel better because it has a little bit of wiggle room in some of the projected timelines. So that's the building project update. And then I would propose that in the coming months that we as a board start entertaining an early retirement package for next year. So that's not something that I'm proposing for this year. That'd be too late to propose for this year, but for next year, for the 22-23 school year, I think during the springtime, if we can discuss the type of early retirement package we might want to offer to our staff so that they have time to consider what that might look like and whether that's something that would be a good fit for them. I want them to have the time to explore that and not have that be something they have to decide in a short time frame. So something that I plan to bring before you in the spring is early retirement. And I wanted to bring it up tonight just so that our staff can hear that that's something that we will be discussing in the near future, is plans that we might offer for next year. I think that's all I have for my report tonight.
Yeah, I think that's it for the meeting. We'll go into closed session now, so